Hi, boys and girls. It's time for another story. Today's story is called Janna's Offering. Now, Janna, she was a very skinny little girl. She had long pigtails that hung down her neck, but she was very pale. Sue, she lived down the road from where Janna lived. Now, Janna lived in a cabin that was kind of set a little bit back toward the woods, and it didn't have any electricity. It didn't have any heat. It didn't even have any running water or any toilet or no bathtub. But Janna didn't seem to act like she even cared so much. They had been refugees, and they had come from the country that they'd lived in, where there was a bad war, to Janna, America. Everything that the Americans had was so wonderful. And she was very thankful to even have a roof over her head. Mother, she had invited Janna home every once in a while, and invariably she would ask Janna to have supper with them. Well, one evening, Mother had made a trifle with bananas between the layers and on top. Oh, Janna, she ate and she ate and she ate. And once she had gone home, Sue had went and asked her mother. She said, Mom, she acted like she'd never seen a banana before. Mom said, well, maybe she hasn't. A lot of those countries don't have all the things that we have. We just take them for granted. Well, besides often inviting Janna home, Mother, she would sometimes bring them things. And this week was no exception. She had brought some chairs that they'd had up in the attic. And Sue, she said to her mom, why are you always bringing them things? Shouldn't they just get a job and work for them? And Mother looked at her kindly, almost sympathetically, and she said, Sue, it's really hard to get a good job when you don't speak the language where you live. Oh, and she said, think about it. Even if that father got a really good job, he could go to the store, but he couldn't talk to the people about what he wanted to buy or how much they cost. It would be really hard. I guess so. Well, it wasn't but the next day when Mother found something else to give to Janna. She asked Janna if she would like to learn how to speak English. And Mother told her she'd teach her. You would think that Janna had gotten the best toy in the world to learn English. Well, she learned really fast, and it wasn't long till even Sue could understand her English, and now they could communicate back and forth. Well, somewhere along the line, Janna's father, somebody had given him a cow and a few chickens, which he took care of in a little shed behind their house. Well, he had to be able to feed that cow. So he worked up in the hills at a lumber camp. And every day when he'd get home, he had found an old scythe somewhere. And he would go out and cut any grass that he could find and stack it up by that shed so the cow would have something to eat when winter came. But there wasn't enough hay, grass, anything just around there to make enough for a cow to eat all winter. So when winter came and it started to snow, Father realized something. Now, the lumber camp was up in the forest, and those men cut down logs and they hauled them down to places where they could sell the logs at. He also noticed something else. The majority of the men that worked there, they also lived there. A lot of them weren't married and didn't have families, so they lived in a little barracks type building that the man that owned it had built, and they ate in a little kitchen there. Well, Father had discovered that all the extra food scraps and stuff were just thrown away. So he found a little cart and he went to the man that cooked in the kitchen and he said, "Would you be willing to put all the scraps in here instead of throwing them in the garbage can? And I'll take them home and my chickens and the cow can eat them." That worked. But Sue, because she would go down and visit, she realized that maybe it wasn't just the cow and chickens that was eating those scraps. Maybe the family children were eating those scraps as well. Well, Sue got home that day. She had said to her mom, she said, "I'd like to do something for Janna, and it needs to be something nice." And Mom said, "Well, it's almost Christmas. We could invite her family to have Christmas dinner with us." And Sue said, "No, we can't do that because the Keiths from church have already done that." "Well, maybe we could have a birthday party for her. Do you know when her birthday is?" Sue said, "No, but I can run ask her when her birthday is." Well, Sue had also noticed that that little cabin didn't have any signs that Christmas was coming. So she went down to ask Johanna when her birthday was. And oh my, Sue thought, Johanna was born in the worst time possible. She was born on the 30th of December, between Christmas and New Year's. Nobody liked to be born then. She went home and she told her mom, and Mom said, "That's great. We'll have a birthday party then for her. It'll be a surprise, and we'll invite everybody from the church." Well, Sue thought that was a great idea. Well, it had started snowing some time before. And Sue noticed that Johanna just loved to play in that snow. There hadn't been any snow where she'd lived, I guess. But she liked to go out and she would make it in big piles and she would make snowmen and she'd make snow forts and snow castles. But she had a raggedy coat that was so raggedy that parts of it looked like you could see through it. And of course, Janna didn't seem to notice this, but the dress that she always wore was a lady's dress, and it went down to her ankles, and it hung like a tent. But she didn't seem to mind. But when she went out and played in the snow, she didn't have any mittens. She didn't have any scarf. She didn't have a hat to pull down on her head. All she had was that kind of see-through coat. And Sue had gone down to play with her in the snow. And then when Joanna was bending over to pick up some snow, Sue noticed her socks. Her socks looked like they were so stretched out that they wouldn't stay up where they belonged. Janna had fixed that the best way she knew how. She had taken rubber bands and she'd pulled them up the leg of her sock. And sometimes, even with the rubber bands, her socks would fall down. And then Sue could see the skin of her leg was bright red from the cold. Well, Sue was worried about all those things. One day, Mother, she invited Joanne's family to come with them, her family, to church. So Mother said, and I will bring the car down and I will pick you up and take you. So the Sabbath came when they were going to take all them to church. When they got to church, of course, Janna was the attention person at the church. All the people kind of rushed over to talk to her. And Sue said, I just sat clear back. I didn't know if I wanted to be associated with that poor family. And then I realized she was getting all the attention. So I came up. And of course, Joanne was excited that I was there. And everybody knew that we were friends. And all the people from the church looked at me and said, how wonderful that you are so nice to the little poor girl. What an awful thing to say. And then Sue said, I was terribly embarrassed because I was actually guilty, because I hadn't wanted to act like I was a friend of hers. Well, Mother kind of talked to the people in the church because Christmas was coming, and then that birthday party would be the week after Christmas. One man, the weekend of Christmas, came up to Janna, and he had a $1 bill. And he said, here, this is for you to buy something for you. And Janna, she looked at it, a whole dollar, all her own, a whole dollar. Well, she held it very close to her. This was one of the most precious things she'd ever had. At our churches, every 13 weeks, they have what they call 13th Sabbath. And on 13th Sabbath, there's a special offering taken. And that offering is collected all over the world. And it goes to special projects, special generally mission projects. And that 13th Sabbath, the offering was going to Korea to build an orphanage to all the little kids that slept out on the sidewalks and didn't have anything to eat. They were cold and hungry and lonesome, and they didn't have clothes. And they ate out of the garbage cans. She was sick to her stomach. But Janna, she was so excited. It was almost like she wanted to jump up and down right there in church. And in front of everybody, she went, I have $1. I have $1. Can I give it to the offering for the orphanage? Well, wouldn't you know it? The man that had given her the dollar, he turned and he looked at her and he said, "No, I gave you that for you, to buy something for you." And Janna turned and pleasantly looked at him and she said, "I don't need anything." And in the offering plate went Johanna's dollar. Sue noticed that a lot of the people kept wiping their eyes. They were quiet. They couldn't believe a little girl that had given really all she had for somebody else. And Janna, she said, "I know what it's like to sleep on a sidewalk. I know what it's like to live through a war. I know what it's like to be hungry and cold." Well, that offering for that mission project, that orphanage in Korea, was the biggest offering that Sue's church had ever collected. And then something else started happening. As Mother started taking Janna and her family home, as she went by the people, the ladies started reaching in their purses, and the men reached in their pockets. And as Janna walked by, they stuck the money at her and put her in her hand. She didn't know what to do, but she said, "Thank you." Then some of them stuck them in that big pocket of that dress. Well, do you know what Janna did with that money? She gathered it all up and she went and found the treasurer of the church. And she said, here's a bunch more money for the orphanage." And that too was put in the offering plate. When Sue got home, she was still totally amazed at a child that was so unselfish that she didn't keep anything for herself, even though she basically had nothing. Sue went upstairs. She was thinking about Janna's birthday party, and she went up to her room and she started looking around, and she got a wonderful idea. She rushed over and she picked up her very, very specialist dolly, the one that she absolutely loved, and she was called Clementine. She looked at Clementine and she thought, you know, I love you, but Janna, I'm sure doesn't have a dolly, and I'm sure she would love you more than I do. So Susan took Clementine down the stairs to where her mother was, and she said, "Mother, do you think it would be all right if I gave Clementine to Janna for her birthday?" And Mother went, "I am so proud of you. You're giving your best to somebody else." Well, the next Sabbath, Janna and Mama and Sue stayed in town that evening. They went to the dollar store, and Mother said to Janna, "You know, I need a gift to give to a mother and a father. Would you be willing to walk around the dollar store and pick out something that you think that a mother and father might like? So Janna did. Took her a long time. She looked at all those shelves. Finally, she came up with some things. She found a big mug, and she said, "This would be good for the father." And Mother agreed. So that was put in the cart. And then a little while later, she came rushing up and she said, "Don't you think these would be nice for the mother?" Mittens. Mittens for taking things out of an oven. So when they got back in the car, Mother said, "These are presents for you to take home to your mother and father. Now we're going to stop at my house and get some wrapping paper so you can wrap them all up pretty and bring them home to your parents." The time came for that surprise birthday party, and all the people from the church came, and there was cake and ice cream and food, and Janna's parents came too. And Janna, she absolutely loved Clementine. Sue was having such a wonderful time. When the party was all over and the people had all gone home, Sue sat there and thought, and she realized how happy she was. And then she realized that she'd learned the joy of giving from Janna. You know, boys and girls, we never give till it hurts. We give of our extra. We're taught at church to share with others and give to others. But we don't often do that. And we don't understand. Our country has lots of refugees in it now because of wars around the world, places where the people aren't safe to stay. And you know, we often think, oh, you know, if they just get a job, if they just do this, if they just do that. Do you know what a refugee is? A refugee is someone that has to leave their country. Everything they have gets left behind. Generally, all they have is maybe what they have on and a tiny little bag. And they might have lived in as nice of houses as we have and had as much beautiful things as we have. It was not their choice to be a refugee, but it can be our choice to help people that are. I thank you for listening today, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.